The second headline: over 1 million have died of COVID, but 40% were diabetics.
Yeah. Are we through the pandemic, or is everyone just dying?
They're diabetics. They deserve to die.
It's okay. Yeah, they had pre-existing conditions, which means their lives really aren't worth living.
They only took 3 phases, not 4, not 11.
Welcome to the Free China Pod, y'all. It's been a minute. Yeah, whatever. We're getting into it already. You saw that study I sent you that said that they think that like the efficacy of the vaccine wears off in like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
That was, I think, specifically for Pfizer, but can't imagine the rest of them are too much different. It's just one study, but it was peer-reviewed.
Well, I would say there's a lot of small observational studies, and everything now just gets passed off as fact rather than a small observational study. So it's like those studies where you have one of them says that drinking wine every day causes cancer, and another one says that it reduces the rate of heart disease. Like, they might both be true. Neither of them might be true. Like, these are just tiny, poorly designed studies, and we're just basically guessing. And people, like always, will cherry pick the data that suits their purposes, unfortunately.
I like wine.
Which is why literally, like, within like 2 days of you telling me that, I was listening to wonderful Fareed Zakaria. And he had Ian Bremmer. I believe it was Ian Bremmer speaking. It's sometimes hard to tell who's talking because they have like 30 talking heads. If it was, he's the head of the Eurasia Group, which is one of the largest foreign policy groups. He's like, of all the terrible things that China's done, can you guess what the worst fucking one was?
It's got to be zero COVID.
Not even zero COVID. One aspect of zero COVID.
Lockdowns?
Not importing American mRNA vaccines. That's the worst thing. Not the genocide, not locking down, not providing enough fucking food for its people.
Not Tiananmen Square.
It's not importing ineffective fucking American mRNA vaccines.
Oh.
That was the worst fucking thing that China did,
well,
according to him.
The worst thing that he never did was it's bad, man. It's really bad. There's a lot of just shitty takes right now.
These are the upper echelons of the American foreign policy establishment. So with ideas as crude as that, as unscientific as that, coming out from the highest tiers of power, that's pretty disturbing, I would say.
Well,
and by the way, I mean, in case anyone doesn't know, Shanghai is, outside of their quarantine areas, they're at 0 cases. So for all the people that are like, we can, including the head of the WHO, who's like, we cannot control Omicron. You have to let it rampage through your society and kill all the weak. You're wrong. You've been wrong. You've always been wrong.
And you can never say Jabrish wrong. Old Jabrish.
Yeah, I don't know where he's going to get his money now. I wrote an article about him basically bashing him, saying why he's just a nightmare, and everything that he's done is basically turned the WHO into a giant joke.
Well,
from the fact, by the way, did you know that the Twitter account, and by the way, Twitter here is another reason why it's a false news factory. The Twitter account of the WHO still says that COVID is not airborne. It says, fact, COVID is not airborne. It cannot be spread through the air.
Wow.
It still says that today. You can go look it up for anyone who's curious. They didn't take that down. And by the way, it took them 2 years to make any statements suggesting that it would be airborne.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's still there. So
gives
people are worried about fake fucking news.
It gives me a lot of hope for this monkeypox outbreak that we're facing now.
Oh yeah. Well, what's interesting is how many like different takes there have been on that. So if you look at the BBC, where monkeypox I think had its biggest outbreak, they're like, the fatality rate is less. I'm not going to try and do an accent. Is less than 1%. And then if you look at NPR in America, where there is also an outbreak, they say around 5%. And it depends.
I've seen in Northern European countries saying as high as 10%.
It depends on which clade, because there are different clades of the virus itself. And to be honest, I haven't heard which clade has broken out in all of these countries.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, it's bad. And the fact when everyone's saying it's not lethal or it's not dangerous, like 1% fatality mortality rate is already quite lethal, if we're being honest here, especially in the modern age.
I mean, look at COVID has about a 1% mortality rate.
Now it's a lot lower than that.
Well, but it again could get worse, or
yeah.
But even if it doesn't, it's already. I mean, COVID has already killed 1 million Americans. Probably, I would say well over that, but at least.
And this is worse, and they're just like, no, not dangerous,
not a big deal.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, there's been
Get the fuck back to work.
80 confirmed cases, and they suspect 50 more last I saw. But I did see old Biden getting on top of things. He said it's, quote, a concern, and that they're looking into it. But what they're looking into is treatments and vaccines.
Well, there is apparently the old smallpox vaccine, which they stopped giving decades ago, is like 85% effective against monkeypox. And they actually have a new vaccine from 3 years ago that's specifically for monkeypox. They just don't have enough of them. So rather than ramping up production just in case, they're just not going to do anything. By the way, I looked at the history. Like, there's been, I think, 5 outbreaks in the United States in the last 20, 30 years. So It's not like monkeypox has not broken out. But it's very interesting also to see the mixed stories of whether it's contagious, whether it's dangerous. Another one, I saw a lot of people saying it's not contagious. It's very difficult to spread. And then other ones are like, it is an airborne pox virus, which is extremely rare. Because most pox viruses are spread by touch contact only, or by fluids.
That's what I've heard. I've heard both about it. Some people saying that it's airborne, and some people saying that it's only through fluids.
Okay, we got another WHO situation on our hands.
Who can tell?
Let's just be clear. If there's any risk that it can be spread through airborne contact, we should assume the worst.
Yeah.
Which is something the WHO literally does the opposite of.
We wouldn't want to.
And the CDC by that.
We wouldn't want to affect the airplane industry.
Yeah. I saw, by the way, the other day, this hepatitis thing, same bloody thing. I was going to write an article about that in Mandarin, where literally every country in the world, I saw Canadians, by the way, are not like shy about COVID here. Like, it's the same, it's similar to the United States, but even them, they're basically like, adenovirus only shows up in like 20, 30, 40% of our cases. Every single patient, every single hepatitis patient, juvenile hepatitis, had an incident of COVID. And they probably have COVID still lingering around their bodies. And the American CDC is like, we don't think it's likely. We see far more likely that the 40% of cases that actually test positive for an adenovirus, that's it right there. It's not the 100% that have gotten COVID in the past.
Couldn't be.
It's the 40%. We're going to go with that statistic.
That makes us feel better. Well, I saw some data at the U.S. I forget if it was from the CDC or who exactly it was from. But they didn't even test the livers for
That's
for
a
COVID.
huge point, too, is that they're just testing. They're like, oh, well, it's not present in the blood, so that's probably not the case. As if they don't recognize that there are, like, segmented parts of the body, including in the liver, where you can have some kind of autoimmune issue or something like that, which is exactly, by the way, 2 months ago what that study was showing, that the Pfizer vaccine using the mRNA can be reverse transcripted into the human genome.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that vaccines are a part of this, but there's ample evidence from, by the way, India, Canada, China, the UK. Everyone is saying it's probably COVID related, or at least they're highly suspicious that it is COVID related. The only one who's not suspicious is the United States, which says something.
The U.S. knows best.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not good. Anyways, point being, it can be transcripted, and basically, you don't have to have a virus at all. You can have a piece of the genome that gets integrated into your liver, and it starts producing proteins which drive an autoimmune response, which starts killing off your liver tissue, which could itself spur hepatitis. So yeah, not checking the liver tissue is a huge mistake. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's preposterous, but
they seem to care very little.
It's not priority number one right now.
Well, now they got the bird flu too.
Well,
those
but
human outbreaks.
I mean, none of that really matters, because we need to really be thinking about critical race theory. We need to really be thinking about these upcoming midterms and what kind of culture war bullshit we can start. Yeah, pretty much. Well, speaking of the WHO and the WHA, Taiwan again is not invited.
Does that surprise anyone?
No, it doesn't. But I mean, I just think it bears reiterating, and I wrote a medium-sized article about it. Just that. It's like just another clear instance of them just putting politics and money ahead of
And that begs the
health.
question, why didn't we just keep that Donald Trump money cut for the WHO? The WHO has literally, I shouldn't say literally done nothing, but they've been very unproductive, and I think in terms of organizing international coordination over COVID, Ghebreyesus should be put on trial at the fucking Hague for how little he's done, for basically the amount of misinformation they pumped out, misleading information, deliberately misleading possibly, the cover-ups they did in terms of the investigation. I have no idea why we're continuing to fund this. I think that the United States through through like U.S. aid could probably do a better job at this point than the amount of money, because we're the majority funder for the WHO. Like, if we just drop that money and by the way, we dropped the money for the CDC since they're also not doing great, let's just say. and try and reorganize these organizations in a way that's less politicized, I think it would do the world a world of good. I'm not saying that we don't need these. I'm saying that the amount of politicization that has occurred is at a disturbing level.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the problem is that if they are reorganized in like a U.S. hegemonic type way, it's also going to cause problems, because the U.S. is one of the countries that gives the least.
Pfizer, WHO.
Yeah, exactly.
The WHO brought to you by Pfizer. Pfizer BioNTech.
Yeah, so I don't know that it'll help much, but I definitely agree with you that things, even like just the UN in general, needs to be reorganized in a way that's not.
Well, the UN is dead, considering that most of the member states were like, no, we don't think it's a problem that somebody violated the charter when Russia staged an invasion of a sovereign country to erase the nation state off the map. They're like, that's not a problem.
Well,
business as usual.
Well, you got to think a lot of those countries are run by strongmen themselves, so.
A lot of the democracies voted against that, so I think there's no excuse. There's
no excuse either way, but I don't know.
Like Brazil, one of the biggest democracies, where both leaders are basically like, bring on the anarchy.
Jair is definitely a strong man. I mean, he's not.
Jair is not the worst one. The other one, what's his name? Lula.
I don't know if you can say that. You think? I would
Lula
say
literally blamed the victim in this.
Oh, in terms of this instance.
Yeah, in terms of this instance on international relations.
Yeah, it's unforgivable, for sure.
He got married last week, by the way.
Congratulations.
Yeah, to somebody 20, 30 years younger than him, as with every 77-year-old man.
Let's not be ageist, sorry.
Love has no numbers.
Politicians who have definitely reached their term limits trying to run again after being released from prison.
That I can get on board with. I
think 2 terms as president, you've probably hit your limit.
You're probably all right. Yeah, you can probably retire.
You can fuck off.
Yeah. Go start a Netflix publishing company like Obama. Go give fucking speeches to Wall Street for $250,000 a pop.
Speaking of, I mean, that's exactly what happened with Putin, where he reached his term limits, he stepped down, and then he changed the constitution.
Never mind.
Yeah. As if we didn't learn any lessons about democracies turning into autocracies from that.
Yeah. Well.
Ew, touch it.
That's our problem, is that we don't learn lessons enough.
I knew you'd say that.
Well, history is important, and so Ari is her story, you know? I think we need to remember that. I was going to say...
a Lula line?
We need to remember history, we need to remember her story, especially if her story is my 30-year-old wife.
I think she's in her 50s.
Well, yeah, if he's
younger.
70.
He's 77.
Still younger than Biden.
I'm glad that brings you comfort.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know if it does, but I'm just talking facts here. I deal in the realm of facts.
So says you.
While we're still on the issue of like global health and WHA, and namely Taiwan not being allowed, I was looking on Global Times, and they're just like taunting Taiwan. They're like, if you want to join the WHA, why don't you admit to the One China principle? It's like, no. I don't think anyone's going to do that. The U.S. isn't even going to do that. Like, Taiwan's definitely not going to. So, fuck off. And Ma Ying-jeou is also, like, taunting the Tsai administration, saying that basically every year under his presidency...
COVID deaths were 0.
Well, yeah, they weren't allowed, Taiwan was allowed to go to the WHA. But it's like, yeah, because you were trying to do sweetheart deals under the steel of night with China.
Let's just admit that the WHA has no purpose and it's useless.
It could have purpose.
It could.
Give the WHA purpose again. But yeah, right now I would say it has.
We're not missing anything.
I would say it has purpose. It's just not like
It
global
doesn't have
health.
use. How about that? Can we say that?
I mean, again, it has use. It's just like
It has potential use. but-
whitewashing dictators. Like,
Okay, it's got no use for Taiwan.
yeah, it's got yeah.
Well, maybe it does.
We'll
COVID's
see.
not dangerous.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, as we already have hundreds of deaths now. Good choice.
But they're all diabetics, Jordan. They're all
Yeah.
diabetics, and some of them didn't get their vaccines. So
I hear a lot of people screaming about that. They really like to point it out. Or they only had 2 vaccines. They only had 2. They only got 2. It's like, okay. Well, you know, when we had 0 cases every day, there were 0 deaths, diabetics or not, vaccinated or not. So I don't know. Seems like the math doesn't work in those people's favors. But anyway.
science and facts, those are all things that belong to Anthony Science Fauci.
Yeah, Anthony Science Fauci trademark, Coca-Cola Corporation.
Yeah, my favorite was when they switched to the 3+4 plan based on absolutely no scientific data.
Well, it's 0 plus 7 now, bud.
Whatever it is.
Well, it was. You're right. It was 3 plus 4, and now it's 0 plus 7.
Yeah, so
For using rapid tests that the CDC, the CECC, and Chen Shizong have all said are not terribly reliable,
and also the fact that
and now they're just not fucking available. Also, I heard they're more available now, so I should be fair. But go ahead with it.
I'm confused on 3+4, 0 plus 7. What I'm complaining about is that they're like, if you've had 3 vaccines, you no longer have to quarantine because it's under the false assumption that you're less likely to spread it, which is based on no science whatsoever.
That's the 0 plus 7 right now. So basically, you just have to rapid test negative, which is like, I guess at least they're doing testing on like
at least they're doing
America.
something.
But yeah, your point is exactly right. That like people are still arguing the fact that like getting a bunch of vaccines stops you from spreading it, and we have clear evidence that it fucking doesn't.
Well, they just don't care. Let's just be honest. And I wish they would admit that
Well,
too.
they care. They just care about profits.
They don't care about people, and they don't care about
health.
public
Yeah.
health.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I don't understand why Chen Shizong has not stepped down.
Because he doesn't need to. There's not enough political pressure against him.
What is the point of having a CECC when the government has no centralized approach anymore? Like when they're basically just open the floodgates.
That's one thing that I was thinking about writing about, is that they're basically creating like a federalist system now, where like it's delegated to the local the local mayors. Like I know Taoyuan and Kaohsiung are both doing all remote learning next week.
You have 1 week. That's really.
That's what basically everyone I've talked to has said. I'm like, why don't we just do it all the time? They're like, oh no, 1 week. Actually, most people are like, this is stupid.
How about you just do it until summer vacation? Jesus, it's like a month.
It's
away.
a month away. Yeah, it's
3 weeks.
It's
We're like, no,
it's
1 week is
preposterous.
enough. We cannot have 3 weeks of online classes. Are you insane? Their learning disabilities will skyrocket
Yeah.
based on zero evidence. Based on my pure feeling.
That was always my favorite. Is like that online class will like severely stunt people's growth, but so will wearing masks. So it's like you can't have either. We can't have either. We can't prevent, as if juvenile hepatitis doesn't severely dent people's educational capabilities. It's clear that they're working backwards from their conclusion, which is,
Yeah.
I want to do absolutely nothing,
They
and I
wanna just go
don't
back
care
to-
who dies.
Exactly. Just go back to fucking total normal.
Yeah. Well, I think if they want anarchy, we should bring it to them. Moving on to other unhappy news, so we can get all the unhappy news out of the way at the beginning.
We talked about Lula's marriage.
That's true. That is happy news. Congratulations, Lula. And congratulations, Lula's wife.
Who will inherit a lot of money from the convicted corrupt leader who allegedly embezzled like millions of.
Yeah, I
I
haven't.
forget what their currency is.
Pesos.
Rupiah.
Brazilian pesos.
Is it?
No.
Sounds right, probably. Favelas.
I need 4. This schmuck costs 14 shillings and 4 favelas.
I bet it is the peso.
The Irvine shooting is what I was going to talk about next.
Why?
Because
Why do we even talk about shootings anymore?
well, I mean this
Not
one
news.
this one has like
Real.
this one has like a very
The
Real.
Taiwanese one.
Yeah. This one has really close ties to Taiwan. I mean, there was also that Buffalo shooting, which, yeah, I get your point about like talking about shootings. That's why I don't really talk about that many. I just talk about the fact that we've had more mass shootings than days of the year this year.
Yeah, guess what happened on Friday? It was a graduation day at a whole bunch of high schools across the United States. There were three shootings at 3 separate high school graduation ceremonies.
Yeah, and there will be more because they're not doing anything about it.
Learning to live with gun violence.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a new series on FCP.
Learning to live with everything.
Yeah, learning to live with the destruction of the planet.
Learning to live with climate change. Learning to live with autocracy.
Yeah, the shooting is weird, and it shows like how complicated the issue of Taiwanese identity is, but also how little like people understand it. Because when it first happened, I was like sleuthing through Twitter and all these articles because I was trying to write about it, and there was just so much like, I don't think it was purposeful, but it was just like incorrect information. Like people calling the guy Chinese and calling him Taiwanese. People obviously use, some people were, yeah.
Was the shooter Taiwanese?
He was a second generation Waisanren.
Okay.
Which, for anyone that doesn't know, Waisanren are like
second generation in America.
He left. From the latest information I heard is he left Taiwan when he was like a year old.
Okay,
so he was born in Taiwan. So he's, in the broadest sense of the term, technically Taiwanese, but he identified as Chinese for sure.
Okay.
And he had like a bunch of, he didn't like have a manifesto, but he had like at least not that I've seen yet, but he had a bunch of like papers that he had written on. Yeah. That he like,
the manifesto
hated Taiwan, and Taiwan treated him so poorly, which I think is hard to believe because
he left when he was a child.
Yeah, he doesn't have any memories of living there, but maybe his parents did. There's like some people saying that like maybe his parents were basically kicked out of the country or like forcefully brought to Taiwan.
How old is he?
He was in his late 60s, I think.
Oh yeah, so he probably left during the authoritarian.
Yeah, but again, I don't think he was old enough. But his parents may have had to deal with it. But the weird thing about that is that instead of like embracing Taiwan's modern democracy, he goes like in favor of China. He was part of a United Front's work. It was like
so they're just communists. I mean, that's probably why they got kicked out of the country.
Maybe, but I don't know why they'd be kicked out into Taiwan. You know?
Well, they probably weren't kicked out. They may have been sent to spy, and then they were kicked out of Taiwan to the United States.
I don't know if they were kicked out of Taiwan though. I think they might have left of their own volition. But he was part of a group called the National Association for China's Peaceful Reunification, or the NACPU.
So what was the shooting? I don't really know the context.
So he basically went into a Presbyterian church, which has deep ties to the Taiwan independence movement in Taiwan. There was actually, I wrote a whole article about that, so if people want to learn more, you should read through it, and I have a ton of citations in it, like linked to like journal articles and stuff about all this. But there was at least one pastor in Taiwan, Presbyterian minister, who was kicked out for pushing for Taiwanese independence in the 70s, and they came out in 77, I believe it was, with an official statement that basically said that the Presbyterian Church like de facto supported Taiwan independence. So that's a long time before like.
Yeah, I've heard that association. So he attacked the church because of its association.
We don't know for sure, but it seems that way.
Okay.
So there's no like, I don't think they've had, or they haven't released any documents that say like I'm attacking it for this reason, but it seems he was doing this in Irvine, California, and he lived in Las Vegas, so he drove quite a ways to do this attack. But it was a Taiwanese Presbyterian church. Like, not all the people there were Taiwanese. One of the people that was shot actually was Filipino, but could speak Taiwanese for some reason.
Well, the church may have conducted their services. I mean, if they're like.
The guy apparently when he went into the church was also speaking Taiwanese to the people there. So, but anyway, so he opened fire, injured 5 people. Like an 86-year-old woman and then 4 men, aged 66, 75, 82, and 92. Who, last I heard, are all thankfully still alive. But he also killed a guy named Dr. John, I think his name is probably Zhen. I forgot to look up his Mandarin name. But he was a 52-year-old, and he had taken his mother to service. And he tackled, like the pastor hit the dude with a chair. He's like reloading because he brought in 2 pistols. He shot a bunch of people. The pastor fucking steel chair to the back of his head, and then this doctor tackles him. And in the process, at some point, got shot and eventually passed away, unfortunately. And then they tied him up with an extension cord. So like that guy, the guy that passed away definitely saved a bunch of lives. So it's a really sad story and kind of shows how insidious this like Chinese nationalism.
It sounds like this guy was a psychopath, though.
Well, I mean, you can say that about all shooters. Like they probably have some mental illness, but like there's a ton of mentally ill people that don't do these attacks. Like the Buffalo shooter is the same.
I'm not blaming the mental illness. I'm blaming the guy. But I'm saying I think that his mental illness probably played more of a factor than his extreme political slant.
Again, you could say that also about the Buffalo shooter. That
I probably would.
Yeah, but I don't think that sort of like hive mind helps at all, because the Buffalo shooter was like very deep into like 8chan and like these like right-wing discords.
It definitely doesn't help, but I mean, there's so many different hate things to get latched onto. It's just like, which one? I mean, he could have gotten latched on like an incel thing, killed a bunch of strippers. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying it's
horrible.
It's horrible,
but,
and it's insidious, and we need to like push back against these sorts of
it's
things.
It's more a sign of how easy it is for people with mental illness to stock up on firearms. I think that's.
I don't know if he was like diagnosed as with anything. So.
And that's a problem too. I honestly think that.
Well, we have no access to mental health care, but again, there is some responsibility on the part of the person, obviously,
what I'm saying
like
is
doing the shooting, but also taking care of people's mental health.
Policies that say that if you want to acquire a firearm, you have to basically go through like a psych screening.
Well, it's
going to be very unpopular.
My
I know that.
Second Amendment rights.
Well, simple background checks, which you could loop like some sort of like mental health check into, are overwhelmingly popular.
Yeah, and they still won't do that.
It's overwhelmingly popular with like NRA members. It's like over 70%. The last study I looked at.
And yet they still keep fucking paying their leaders.
They get bribes. American politicians receive bribes on the regular. They're called campaign donations. And so, yeah, of course. And they also get to be the lobbyists for those groups and make millions of dollars after they retire. So,
listen, I agree with you, but I also think that the American people, that 70% of the NRA who still gives their money to the NRA and who still votes for the people the NRA suggests, bear responsibility for that. Like, you can only get for so long and just be like, oh, well, I don't have any other choice. You do. You simply do. Number one, don't vote. Like, you don't think that
not voting gonna help?
I think it will, honestly.
I think the same people will still get elected because the most rabid people are going to still vote for the most rabid politicians.
If like 10% of the population votes, like the country's going to start to collapse. Like people will lose democratic legitimacy if they're only getting a fraction of the electorate voting for them. I'm not saying that's the only solution,
I don't think
but
they
I'm
care,
saying
though.
Voting between two pieces of shit and then being like, well, that's the only choice I have, but I'm going to legitimize them. It's a bad choice. It's a bad move.
I think, yeah. I mean, I hope people start doing more protesting. And I wrote an article about the Roe versus Wade stuff. I think I legitimately think this. And obviously, no violence against anyone. No threats of violence. And for the most part, I say be somewhat civil. But I think we need to make elites scared again. I think we need to show them our power, because it's been shown throughout history. When you make them scared, especially in a place that's still
when you say scared,
pretty
you mean disturbing the public order, like not in a violent way. Just like,
yeah, and I'm not calling for violence, obviously. I mean, I'm also not even endorsing like property destruction, though it seems that also sometimes helps. But yeah, I think making disturbing the public order, doing like huge strikes and stuff that shut things that make these politicians money, occupations. I think
Hammond Bundy's got something to say about that.
I think, but I mean, clearly these things can be effective. And I think, going outside of these people's houses and watching even Democrats cry about, they're protesting outside of judges' houses.
Did you see Bill Maher?
Get fucked.
Even the Republicans and Democrats alike on this.
No, that's what I'm saying.
We need to protect the power of elites to keep their privacy and fuck over everyone without anyone complaining.
You're a public figure. You've given up all rights to privacy. Sorry. Like, and
Olivia would disagree with you on that.
Well,
most Taiwanese people would. By the way.
Well, that's their prerogative, but they're wrong.
They're wrong. My values are true.
My values are the right values, folks, and your values, they're wrong.
My God is real. Yours is fake.
The other thing is that and maybe unless you live in Florida where they passed that law that bars protesting outside of people's houses, which hopefully gets struck down soon.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to stay on the books for very long.
With the Supreme Court we have right now, it's very hard to say. But
yeah, maybe that's well. Actually, I don't know because
it's enshrined in the Constitution, so it would be harder.
Yeah, strictly
because then
speaking-
then if they do that, you can start like banning guns out and out in like California, places like that. But
you could. I mean, they could stack the Supreme Court. They could make those 9 very. Is it 9 now? 7?
there's 9
11,
justices.
9? Those 9 very powerful people into 9 out of 1,500 very weak people.
But, yeah, I mean, the thing is that the Democrats
Gonna have to build a new building.
are too weak to do that. Yeah, exactly. Put an extension on there.
Well, they're just doing it like the Florida Gator Stadium.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Just have a cheerometer to
the,
see.
the federal government just seizes the fucking property. They're like, public.
We need this to hold our Supreme Court hearings. Now we're gonna go in 2 rounds here. Whoever wants to uphold this, what's the word? I can't find the words here. To uphold this ruling, scream yeah right now. Anyone wants to vote to overturn it, scream no now.
All those in favor, Gator chomp. All those opposed, tomahawks.
I don't understand those football references.
Sports ball. Hashtag sports ball. Yeah, it's they got to do something, but they're not going to. That's kind of where I stand on all of it. Is I just don't see the feckless Democrats becoming any less feckless, unfortunately.
Well, then stop complaining.
Nah, let's keep complaining. I mean,
Just let it happen.
what I'm hoping is that this is that people get it.
President Kamala Harris will save the world.
Well, yes, our wonderful dear leader Kamala. My hope is that people will hear this and then get pissed off and then go do direct action, because I think direct action is probably about the only way. I'm fine with voting. I'll vote. I'm going to vote in the midterms, but like
For who?
voting is what I think it's necessary,
right now.
necessary but insufficient. I haven't looked at the ballot.
Which party would you vote for?
I don't know. It depends.
go
It really
fully Elon Musk?
for me it's well, he's going to be running as a Republican in 2024 for sure, or maybe as an independent of the.
I'm going to be the vice president of Donald J. Trump.
He said he's going to put Trump back on Twitter, but I don't think he's going to buy Twitter now. I don't think he's going to get the chance.
Well, then he's going to be out $1 billion.
Good. He should be out a lot more than that. There was a autopilot crash the other day that killed like 4 construction workers.
Fake news, folks.
Locked the person inside, and a bunch of construction workers had to rescue the person.
This is why I need Twitter, because more and more fake news from the woke Democrats is being pumped out against me.
Oh yeah, and also that he paid $250,000 to a woman
Well,
that
he didn't. Tesla did.
Whatever, same thing. That's his company.
It's technically not. I mean, it's a huge substantive difference, I would say.
Well,
I'm not saying he didn't do it. I'm just saying it makes a difference if he personally paid that money or if Tesla did it to like quiet the story.
Legally speaking, you're definitely right. In terms of like actually making a difference in terms of the story, I don't think
It makes a difference on one hand, saying that basically Tesla's using public money, public here, I'm not meaning like belonging to the general public, but stockholder money to basically pay
public
for
money though, because of all the fucking subsidies they get and the fact
Yeah,
that
well,
they pay taxes.
they get a lot less subsidies now. But anyway,
Yeah, now, but they got a shitload in the past, which is why they have a huge fucking like market of the EV market, even though they sell like less cars than any other fucking car manufacturer.
I think they sell more than Subaru.
Do they?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe in America.
Yeah, in America. They're like bottom 10, bottom 15. I looked it
stock
up.
price is huge.
Yeah.
Because it's just like Trump. It's
Well, not
it's a
anymore.
cult of personality. Yeah, it's falling crazy.
Because people are just getting sick of the bullshit. Like, I mean, just like any other meme, there's its highs and then eventually it just disappears. And people are like, oh, remember that meme?
Yeah. Eventually,
remember GameStop?
Eventually, just like Brian, you get tired and leave.
She leaving?
Yeah,
Did she
definitely.
Just pop
I think
out another little
I think
half-breed?
I think they're
By half
like
breed, I mean half a robot.
you mean half South African.
I like South Africans.
I
don't like robots.
I don't necessarily have a problem with AI. I agree with that. Automatons. Bastards.
And by that, I'm talking about Grimes, of course.
I think they named it something like Bleep Blork 679 Sigma, something like that. I don't remember.
Alt delete.
Yeah, I really wish Elon
That's
Musk.
what I wished I could have done when I found out Grimes was pregnant.
Abort program.
But you know how these abortion rules in America are. That's why I'm voting Republican to get them changed.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna. I mean, within like a year or two, we will have a Kanye-style video of Elon Musk crying into a microphone saying how he almost aborted his robot child.
So high right now.
No, that's not. Have you seen that Kanye video where he's like crying about almost aborting his daughter? That's a.
No, I haven't.
It's a
I
bad.
was just because there's lots of videos of Elon Musk getting high with Joe Rogan, and he's saying absolutely ridiculous shit.
Speaking of
Elon Musk versus Musk Elon.
speaking of goofy post-English colonies with crazy accents, Joe Bogan just watched the election. I already messed it up. The election in Australia is over, though.
Yeah,
is where I was going with that.
Albanese.
Albanese.
He
I'm
won.
not surprised. People were pretty pissed at Scott Morrison's handling of just about everything.
Yeah, for real.
And Australia's like not really in good shape right now. They fucked themselves over with COVID.
Yeah.
They fucked themselves over with their housing market. They fucked themselves over with like ignoring climate change.
Climate change and wildfires. Yeah.
And flooding.
Yeah, flooding as well. Yeah,
Droughts.
It's bad.
I mean, droughts are connected to wildfires, but the droughts themselves are quite damaging.
Speaking of memes, though, there was a shitload of people, of men, voting in their Speedos. I'm sure you saw some of those
I
pictures.
did not.
Very
I'm not on Twitter, but
Very sexy men. It's
I'm
in like the.
technically
I was
on
reading on like CNBC, I think, and that was like their picture for the article.
Greta Van Susteren has this new report for you on men in Speedos voting.
Well, as they say, sun's out, buns out in the land of the dingo.
Voting against the Liberal Party. That's Greta Van Susteren loves. Even though the Liberal Party is Australia's
Conservative Party.
modern conservative party. Yeah, I don't like all these double meaning terms.
Double speak.
It is double speak. It's fucking bullshit.
Speaking of elections, or maybe future elections, one of the lawmakers in the Meretz party in Israel,
Oh.
she resigned over the
Look up
shooting
Meretz.
of that Palestinian journalist.
Yeah, I was hoping we would have to talk about this.
We don't have to talk necessarily.
It's
about,
okay. We can talk.
We don't. But the point I'm that whole shooting is I think it's we don't have necessarily all the evidence now, and I don't think we will. I tend to believe it was probably the IDF that shot her in the face, but it also could have been anyone because there's a lot of violence there. But I mean, the IDF is like basically going to do their own internal investigation, so I'd say we never know. It's like when the police do their own investigations. It's biased from the start.
Well,
But-
on the other hand, I mean, there was no way not to have bias because the Palestinians also refused to have a cooperative investigation.
They should have brought in like an independent third party,
Yeah, but
but
they
it's
refused.
never going to happen. This is the thing is it's always going to be like this.
Yeah,
And-
it's
until
just polarized, so
Yeah.
you should just pretend it doesn't happen.
I tend to disagree, but
Just like American democratic politics.
we should just not care about any of it. Get super black-pilled and just have fun with it. But
Make some memes.
point being is that since she stopped backing Bennett, now he doesn't have a majority in the Knesset. He doesn't have a majority in the cassette tape game anymore. Yeah, in the Knesset, because it dropped from 60 to 59. So there might be new elections again.
If I think they probably have to hold a no confidence vote in order to dissolve that government, but yeah, she might flip because if she's the one to throw this government, I think that party's going to lose a lot of votes because people are going to be like, why the fuck are we having a fourth election in 2 years? Because one.
I mean, I kind of understand what she's doing. I mean, I think
Wait,
that
what is she doing? Because does she have a solution in mind for like the 70 years of violence between the two sides?
I mean, does anyone
But then what's the fucking point? Like, what's the point of being like, I protest this and I'm angry and we're not going to change anything. We're just going to have new elections
I
and the
don't-
same cycle's going to start
I mean,
again.
they obviously have they have ideas about how to do it. The party supports, like, they have ideas about how to do a 2-state solution. Whether that's feasible or not is a different thing.
What are
but
her ideas?
I haven't done like a deep dive on her, but suffice it to say, I do think more elected officials should be doing things like this and taking a stand on things that actually might impact them negatively.
But here's the thing. Why is she dropping her support of the coalition government when it has almost nothing whatsoever to do with that person's death? What does the central government and what does the legislator and the legislative position have to do at all with the handling, like the on the ground handling of a counterterrorism operation?
Well, the police assaulting funeral goers is certainly something that they could have.
I think that's a locally administered issue. I agree with you. This is a fucking disaster. But is it over the death or is it over the funeral?
I think it was over the police violence at the. I think it's probably both, honestly. But from what I read in the article that I was reading, is that it was over the funeral. So
that's another thing I think was an absolute disaster. I don't understand how they can fuck up so many things in a row, and the Israeli public still like supports the government. They're like, you're just doing the best you can on this.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, it's similar to right wing, what I would call probably like proto or wannabe fascists in America that like support the police no matter what. It's Blue Lives Matter no matter what, unless of course they like storm into your house and the ATF like raids your house and shoots your dog. Then it's like, oh, I'm a fucking sovereign citizen, fucking 3%er. But otherwise it's like, oh yeah, like please your fucking blue.
We should censor all of these homophobic references.
But anyway, I mean, also one point is that her party is incredibly small. I think they have 6 or 7 seats in the Knesset. So
but even Netanyahu's party, which was the largest, had like 22.
Yeah,
so
it's obviously incredibly fractured. Yeah. So I don't know. It was just something. I just thought it will be interesting to see if they do have another election, like another fucking election.
It's going to be disaster, but I think the concern right now is keeping Netanyahu as far away from leadership as possible.
Yeah.
Because as bad as shit is, it could get worse.
Oh yeah, there's always room to get worse. That's the thing. It's pretty bad. It's pretty fucking bad, but it could definitely get worse.
That whole situation is a giant disaster, but I think neither the Israelis nor the Palestinians nor anyone else wants to resolve it.
I think I think a lot of people, larger than people would think, maybe not even a majority, but I think a good portion of people do want to fix it, like on the ground. But the leadership.
Number one, since when does anyone care what the people think in a democracy?
That's what I'm saying.
And number two, what the people want. I don't think the people know what they fucking want. They want like general ideas. They're like, we want peace and stability. And then when you actually give them a solution, they're like, no, I don't like that. I don't. You give them the general idea, and they'll say yes 9 times out of 10. But you give them any of the specifics, and they'll turn it down time after time. Like,
it's also not going to matter anyway, because none of these like leaders that keep getting elected are people who would want to do these changes anyway. They're not interested in real solutions. I mean, it benefits them to have this constant tension.
About it, which goes back to the question.
Because I think that you don't get to solutions without like discussing it, and people. I mean,
but are they discussing it?
People should know about it.
What are they discussing? Because they're discussing the funeral. Everyone's discussing.
Depends on who is the who we're talking about.
The media, the
media
discourse.
I mean, the media is shit.
Anything except the short-term acute issue instead of the long-term festering cancer.
There are groups. I mean, there are groups inside of Israel that are Israeli/Palestinian groups that are working for peace.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but is that part of the mainstream discourse?
No, but that's why people need to talk about it, so it perhaps can be, and these movements can grow, and then hopefully actually make some significant change. Maybe get some people elected.
My question is, her protest, will that spur anyone to actually? Will that spur people to do short-term, acute kind of solutions, like a protest vote, like a single protest vote, and then go back to life as normal and never think about it again? And does it have anything to do with people who are trying to find long-term solutions to this?
Maybe not. I mean, I would have to look into it more, but I think even just the fact that it's like a morality thing for her, and she can go to bed with a fucking clean conscience knowing she did what she could. I think that's fair enough.
Over people suppressing a funeral.
Yeah, I mean, is it going?
That's like the worst thing that's happening, even in Israel right now.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like no one's batting 1,000, and there's so many other people not doing anything. So it's like,
Yeah.
we can criticize her. Everyone else is
I'd
sitting
like
on
to
their hands.
criticize her.
So it's like,
I'd like to criticize everyone. The fact that she's even in that government, I mean,
this is the thing, is like, if you're just going to criticize everyone for being a part of any sort of
Yes.
democratic institution and like trying
what I mean
even
is that
things
she's
that are
in there,
insufficient.
and she's not. I haven't. I mean, granted, I didn't even hear about her in this, but where was she talking about any of these issues before?
She
Like,
probably this is the thing, is those things don't get covered. What gets covered is the most sensational shit. Like, I haven't.
like one person trying to bring down a government, I guess.
I mean, yeah, at least trying to stir the fucking pot, man. I don't know. I'm not saying I agree. I don't know this much about her, but I do appreciate people like trying
Stir
to
the
mix
pot.
things up. Yeah.
I can sympathize with that idea
So yeah,
without knowing any more details.
I don't know a ton of things about her. I mainly thought it was interesting because there's going to be a real election, but
Well-
I do think that people should.
I hope for Israel's sake there isn't, because I think the next round will be worse.
It might be.
Because of the round of violence recently in Gaza and now in the West Bank. I think people are feeling more bellicose, and I think there's going to be a further turn to. I shouldn't even say the right, because both the right and the left do the same thing, which is nothing in Israel, just like every other country. They do nothing except help the elites.
I would say there are small issues, sometimes big issues that they do. I mean, like, look at the abortion issue in America. You can say both parties are not really interested in doing much.
Not only that,
but at least I would say the Democrats should have a bunch of blame. But I will say that obviously they're better on the issue because they're at least in favor of maintaining the status quo, which is better than regression.
I would say they have played no role whatsoever in this, just like always.
I mean,
If Joe Biden wanted to, if Joe Biden was actually concerned, he would appoint 3 more justices and throw it. Like,
I mean, I totally agree.
he
with
doesn't care. They don't care. None of them care.
Well, they care in so much as it helps them fundraise. But I think there are,
Yeah.
just like this lady, I think there are members within that do actually care.
I
But it's
doubt
not
that.
the majority. No,
I increasingly doubt that.
I disagree.
I think they all take bribe money.
I would fundamentally disagree. Well, a lot of people don't take campaign contributions except from the average citizen. So, I mean, that's just not true.
Other than Bernie Sanders.
Well, I mean, most of the like squad or whatever, this like the actual progressives, whatever that means in Congress.
Is that a fact? Does the squad not take large campaign contributions, or is that just a thing they say? Because
I mean, you can look it up. Last I saw, none of them have. You can look it up on like Open Secrets.
okay,
But yeah, last I saw, none of them have taken any corporate or PAC money.
well, the PAC money wouldn't be them taking it. The PACs form independently of them, so
Right, but
they
they
can say we don't take it. The super PAC that's technically not affiliated with us took all that billions of dollars. It's very easy to do that.
Yeah, but I
As
still
the
don't
former
think
treasurer of a super PAC.
I still don't think they allow them.
Who's they?
These members of the squad.
What do you mean? It's not an organization. It's like a fucking Twitter meme.
What?
Being labeled as a member of the squad.
Yeah, but I mean, do you have a better? I mean, unless you want me to like individually name all
Top
of them.
contributor, Capital One Financing.
To who?
Ilhan Omar, 12K. Capital One, Airbnb, Acorn Hill. Yeah, she has a shitload of money, corporate money.
Okay, fair enough.
So, let's just be real. They're all shit.
So, again, I still think there is something to be said about lesser of two evils, and that's why I'm probably gonna vote in November. But that's like I said earlier.
I'll probably vote too,
I
but
think
I
it's
know that
necessary, but it's insufficient, and people
know that
people
they're
should
all
be
shit.
people should be you should and
I
you
want
should
you to admit it.
No, I am not going to disagree with you. But I think there is a difference between having to eat a full bowl of shit and a quarter bowl of shit. They're both terrible,
strike.
but one is worse than the other. Yeah, hunger strike.
I haven't eaten yet today, bud.
Hell yeah, intermittent fasting, boy.
It's 4 p.m.
All right, well let's get off this because I
love this.
I don't
I love
think
getting
this
you
is
fired up.
I
I
don't
love it
think
when
this
you
is
say I
going
won.
anywhere. I would of course never admit that. So that's more fake news from Ari.
Well, I got a lot of stories. Let me throw out some.
Go.
We forgot to talk about North Korea, COVID breaking out in North Korea, which is sad
yeah.
for North Korea. I saw recently, I thought this was a hilarious thing that there's like a big headline, America's willing to help North Korea. And there was like a single statement from the State Department being like, we hope that the North Koreans accept our coordination so that we can possibly help them in the future. And they take that to mean America's helping North Korea.
Yeah.
And by the way,
as
they're
if they
just
would
gonna send them
ever
fucking
accept that.
expired Pfizers. I mean, that's what. Let's be real. Like, what else are they gonna do for North Korea? What the fuck? What are they gonna? You think they're gonna take anything from America?
That's what I'm saying. They'll never take it. But
So why even say it?
it makes America look like it's willing to help. I mean, but yeah, no, of course not. So why are we even talking about this, Ari?
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. When you're right, you're right.
I'm just shit talking. No, I mean, yeah, it's. I think it's a little bit of cloak and dagger, fucking international politics. Just trying to boost your image. But I think that's all.
Now that I said that I hadn't eaten, now I feel hungry. Whereas before, I felt perfectly sharp and fresh.
You can't.
I shouldn't have mentioned it.
Yeah,
I was thinking
can't
about.
psych yourself out, bud.
I have dough in the fridge waiting for me.
Mhm.
Cook a big loaf of raisin walnut bread.
Ooh, keep that away from me.
Yeah, I forgot your part, dog. You're allergic to raisins.
Woof woof, motherfucker.
I hope you're gonna censor that profanity.
You know I won't. Light this incense.
Well, Mariupol looks like I should pronounce it the right way instead of Mario.
Mariupol.
In Canada, the first time I went to Canada, not the first time I went to Canada. That's a ridiculous thing to say. When I lived as an adult in Canada for the first time, having left there as a child, and they have a popular like Italian chain like Olive Garden. I forget what it's called. Something Mario's, and everyone calls it Mario's. And I was like, what are they saying?
Dude,
They're like Pizza Mario's.
dude, a bunch of New Yorkers do that too.
It must be a northeastern thing.
I think it is. But yeah,
Mario Cuomo.
Mariupol.
Sorry.
Me and my brother Fredo are gonna go over to Mariupol.
Anyway, Mariupol looks like it's fallen.
has it?
Yeah, it looks like the Azov Brigade has been taken prisoner.
Damn. I wonder if they just get executed.
I know very little about the Azov Battalion, whatever they're called, and why Russia dislikes them so much. Since I think modern Russia is the closest thing to the 1930s Nazis that we have in the world right now.
I don't know. I would almost say that China might be, because they have like their little Xi Jinping youth and shit. But
No,
yeah, but
here's why I
it's
disagree
similar.
with you.
Go ahead.
Because I think that China, at the very least, they don't like ideological subversion and disagreements, but in terms of like cultural differences, they don't mind it. They have very crude ideas about race, I think, but in terms of like cultural diversity, they like to highlight it. And so ideologically, they celebrate diversity. And Russia,
I think they do it on paper, but I don't think they actually support it. That's why you see all these like Han Chinese people in fucking Uyghur uniforms like dancing in the streets. They don't really like diversity. They like it insofar as it makes them look not fucking like an ethno state.
I think they like diversity as a non-threatening kind of symbolic image, and in that sense,
Yeah,
like,
if you
similar to
toe
what
the
you're
party
saying.
line, I suppose.
Yeah. But like even in terms of ethnic diversity, they like it. Like if you look at the National Party Congress and stuff, they like to highlight that stuff. And yeah, you could say that's on paper, but symbolically, it makes a difference even within China that they celebrate that kind of
So
stuff.
what you're saying is hashtag representation matters.
What I'm saying is that's not really Nazism. Whereas Russia, I would say to some extent does the same thing, but I think deep down symbolically, most of the symbols they make are that foreign workers, and Russia, by the way, has a shitload of Central Asian foreign workers, are kind of like a subservient lower class of citizens.
I think a lot of Chinese people feel that way as well. Obviously, that's painting with a broad brush because it's a huge fucking country.
I
but-
totally agree with you, but I think that is against the will of the central government as opposed to following the will of the central government. But
maybe.
you could make the argument that China's international relations with those countries follows a model that causes people to think that it's like a kind of hierarchical relationship between those countries, and therefore why shouldn't it be the same way between the citizens of those countries?
Yeah, I mean, the way they treat Uyghurs, like literally selling them in modern day slave markets on the internet. Like,
I would say the reason I'm not defending what China's doing at all, but
Ari
the
is a
reason
China
they're doing that
apologist.
is because of the ideological challenges they have
yeah. I get what you're
with
saying.
them. It's not because that they're a different ethnic group.
But what I would say is that you had a lot of racism against black people at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So, I mean,
I'm not defending China.
But I get what you're saying is that it's not necessarily the central government pushing that. I think that
I don't think it is at all.
I don't know if they're pushing it, but I I think that
I don't know
the
if
way
they're
they
doing
can
enough to stop it.
Huh?
I'll say that.
Well,
but I don't think-
they're definitely not doing enough to stop it. When you have an authoritarian party that can basically do whatever they want, obviously they're not doing enough to stop it. But yeah, I get your point, and I probably would agree with you, broadly speaking. Anyway, well, the reason that, going back to the original point, I think the reason that they don't like the Azov Battalion is because it's an easy one to pick out and make them look less like Nazis. Is to say we're going after the people who are. I mean, and there are a lot, like, they wear fucking white supremacist Nazi fucking emblems on their uniforms.
Still?
Yes. One of the
documentary evidence of that?
yeah,
they're
there's
still doing it now.
tons and tons of pictures. They wear I forget what it's called. There's like a black sun that actually the buffalo shooter just actually had as well. But yeah, it's a I don't know if it's originally like a Nazi symbol or it's a
join the
neo-Nazi
Azov
symbol,
Battalion.
but they're definitely racist. They definitely fly racist symbols, let's say.
Okay.
So I'm not saying everyone in the Azov Battalion is a neo-Nazi,
The
but
reason that I
certainly
question
they,
this is
they
because
support it.
Typically, neo-Nazi groups are race-centric. Like, most of their warlike ideology centers around race. I would say even Ukrainians don't consider themselves a separate race of people. So why would they give their lives to defend a Jewish democratic leader against the same race as them? That makes no sense to me. Why someone who ideologically is committed to Nazism would do that?
I would say, well, one, they're like under the umbrella of the Ukrainian military now, so I don't know that they have much of a choice.
What do you mean? I mean, they could have handed their weapons and been like,
I think
first of all, why does Russia dislike them?
they might also value democracy over their supremacist ideologies. I don't know. I haven't done a ton of research into the Azov Battalion, but insofar
This
as
was on our team,
I've
kind
thought
of.
about it, is I would assume that that's what it is. Is they feel like they could probably make more progress under a democratic institution, and this is just my conjecture, than they would under a dictatorial Russian regime that's looking to wipe them off the fucking map.
But why? That's my question. Why does Russia dislike them?
Because they're Ukrainian. I think it's not
If they're a
specific.
race-centric
I think it's
regime.
not specifically against the Azov Battalion. They're just using the Azov Battalion because they're so open with their fucking racist neo-Nazi bullshit.
But are
So
they?
it's an
That's my
easy
question.
scapegoat. Yes, they are. I mean, you can just look online. There are tons and tons of images of them flying fucking Ukrainian flags with a swastika on them, with patches on their uniforms that are like SS patches or fucking the one I was talking about, that black sun. They do. I mean, they at least have the symbolism of it.
It just makes no sense to me because neo-Nazism at its center.
Well, neo-Nazism doesn't make sense. That's the thing. Racial supremacism is fucking stupid.
But the whole idea of racial supremacism is about basically fighting against other ethnic groups, not fighting, it says basically they formed in response to the Russian takeover of Crimea and the Donbass region, which means that essentially it's a race-centric organization that's fighting against its own race.
Well, you can. Think about this.
Yeah.
If you were if you were talking about like a neo-Nazi 3%er organization within the United States, they would if China tried to invade, or okay, let's say Russia tries to invade, they would probably try to fight the Russians because they're also nationalists.
that you could consider the possibility that they were just as likely turncoat immediately.
It's possible, especially with like kind of the Republican turn towards like Putin apologism. But
Especially if they think that the authoritarian Russian government would advance their aims better than a democratic government, which naturally has to be representative of all people, including their enemy races.
But I think that the way that they might think about it is, again, my conjecture, within the democratic institutions, you could theoretically amass power. Under the Russian government, you're not. And if you do anything that
But they're not
Putin
going to get
doesn't
power.
like,
Theoretically, yeah, but they're more likely to get their aims achieved under autocracy.
maybe,
Almost certainly.
I don't know if that's
How many
I
racist
don't know if that-
democratic regimes are there? How many genocides?
few, but that doesn't mean that these people are thinking logically. Again, if you think that like being one race being supreme, that's your ideology, you're not a logical thinker. You're a moron. So like, I don't know. I think we're trying to.
Right now that they've basically gotten rid of all the neo-Nazis.
That's good.
That's what I see according to Foreign Affairs. Foreign Affairs I trust because that's another thing from Tablet. It says in 2017, after the union with the National Guard, they rooted out all their neo-Nazis and foreign fighters.
I don't know how you'd say they root out all of them. I don't know if you can say that for certain, but that's good. Again, I don't know. Besides the limited research that I've done on them, I don't know like a ton. But they definitely have very racist roots. That's what I'd say. And I've seen recent images of them flying Nazi memorabilia. So I'm a bit skeptical that they've gotten rid of all of the neo-Nazi elements within it. But if they're making progress, that's good, and I'm happy to hear that. So that could be another reason why they're fighting, is because it's not like wholly owned and operated by neo-Nazis. But I think there are probably still neo-Nazi, at least leaning people within the organization.
I'm sure you're probably right. Anyway, it's weird. It's very strange.
We live in a really strange world, my friend, which is sometimes nice and sometimes it's awful.
It says that the largest funder prior to their integration with the national government was one of the Jewish Ukrainian... What's the word?
Oh, Soros.
No. Ihor Kolomoisky.
That's a sick name.
Ihor.
It sounds like the Ukrainian Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh.
Disgusting.
It's a cool name, though. I mean that.
How do you spell Eeyore?
Good question. I don't know. I've only heard it.
Eeyore.
Wow. That's a spelling.
Oh, I missed that show. I used to love it. When I have kids, I'm going to make them watch that show all the time.
I forget what Winnie the Pooh's voice even sounds like.
Like a little bit high?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, Christopher Robbins, let's go. Oh, that's like a Mickey Mouse voice.
Yeah.
Oh, Christopher Robbins, fuck that Winnie the Pooh guy. Let's go to the forest. Oh.
South Park.
Yeah, that's
You've been watching too much South Park.
I haven't watched South Park for a few months now. I want to encourage everyone to go read all the articles on the website. Namely, I'm interested to see what people's thoughts are on the Jane Collective / Jane's Revenge article that I wrote about.
I read it. It was long.
Yeah, it was
very long.
That was one of those like late night articles where I was just like angry and just writing. So it's around a little over 1,000 words, I think. But there's a lot of
Is that it?
There's a lot of
Felt like it was a book.
It might have been longer. It's also got a lot of like links that I put inside, and there's like a couple videos about suffragettes and stuff because I've been doing research on that. Speaking of
women voters.
I'll probably do it.
Going to America?
Definitely not. I'll probably do it on this channel. I'm thinking about how to do it, but I'm gonna start like a little side podcast doing like deep dive history stuff. Hopefully it'll be kind of fun. The idea.
Hardcore history. Gordon Carlin.
I was I was thinking about doing something like just getting drunk and screaming into the mic, calling it like inebriated history. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not.
You already have that drunk history.
Yeah, I know that was the joke, Ari. Thanks for stepping all over it.
You're welcome.
No, I obviously am not going to do that. But the idea is to like make history fun again, because I think there's
make history great again.
We're going to talk about the greatest history, folks. Because I like being a history educator.
November 4th, 2016, the greatest day in the history of America.
And November 4th, 2020, the most darkest day of all of American history.
No, that was January 6th.
Stolen election.
When Michael J. Pence committed treason by certifying the fraudulent election results.
Fake patriot Mike Pence should have been hung on the White House lawn. Absolutely despicable. But yeah, I'm gonna do I've already written
satire.
Parts of course. Anything that could and will be used against us in a court of law is obviously satire.
Jordan is satirizing Donald Trump's voice, in case anyone didn't know.
If you didn't get it, now you know.
If you don't know.
Now you know.
Check it. Listen. Go back.
I just hate how like boring a lot of history that is online, because I've been doing all these like deep dives and stuff.
You talking about it sounds boring.
What about history?
Deep dive history.
I think it's fascinating, but I understand that like that's my point, is like just researching and like reading these like history tracks and stuff is not always the most interesting
The fact that
thing.
you use tract is already a bad sign.
But that's why I want to make it fun.
Reading all the tracts.
Even like the YouTube videos
digging into the dates and the seconds, the minutes,
I'm not a big dates
the
guy.
primary data, telling you about what they ate that day in history.
I mean, to be fair, the dietary
Yeah, that gap right there.
the diets of people in medieval England is interesting. The fact that they were just drinking ale all the time.
The diets.
See, this is not what it's going to be. This is why Ari is not hosting the show with me, because Ari would make history boring again, whereas I'm going to make history great
People
again.
like the banter.
But Ari might be on a couple shows. But the plan is
He behaves himself.
if he can behave himself, otherwise he will be banned from the podcast. My plan is basically to go in with hopefully a guest most of the time and just kind of read a history that they probably don't know much about, and then just show you how
just gonna be reading a
how
book together.
interesting these can be. No, I'm writing scripts. Fret not, my friend. And then there will be a lot of banter. Is the idea?
How many pages are these scripts supposed to be?
We'll see. I'm gonna shoot for doing 30 minutes to an hour for each episode. So probably a couple thousand words. We'll see. But yeah, because I've just been watching a lot of YouTube videos about British history, and it's always just some posh guy reading a very boring. And then
Are they literally reading in the YouTube videos?
The suffragettes moved on to the next stage of their plan.
January 6th, 1412.
there were no suffragettes at that time.
Rachel Sutheridge, son of Winston Sutheridge, sent a letter to his cousin via horseback. The letter read, and I quote, 2,600 words, written in longhand, "Dear eldest sister."
Dearest Margaret, times have been trifling recently.
Oh, it sounds,
it's
sounds like a trifle.
That's kind of what it. That's why I want to do this. Is because I think you can make history interesting, and I think not enough people try. So
why don't you just make a podcast about physics and math?
How about you make your own podcast about that boring shit? Okay, let me leave me to my own devices.
Well, the Pythagorean theorem. You don't know anything about it.
Pythagoras was one of the most interesting men of all time.
I was reading an interesting article about a lot of those old Greek philosophers and their wacky opinions about eating meat. And some of them, most of them were pro meat. They're like, if you're a vegetarian, you're gonna end up like one of the slaves without any substance. And I'm paraphrasing wildly here, based on an article I read probably a month ago. But
Well,
something like that.
That's something to keep in mind. Is that oftentimes vegetarians and vegans have been on the right side of these issues, such as slavery. A lot of these Enlightenment-style thinkers that were in favor of universal equality were actually, in fact, vegetarians. Ari hates equality. That's why he's a big supporter of the Azov Battalion.
I was just reading about Lula's marriage.
God, get off that, man. Who gives a shit?
A 56-year-old sociologist.
Oh, I just don't care. I just can't. I can't express
how long they've been dating,
how
Jordan?
little I care about this. 2 months.
5 years.
45 years.
So they met when he was 71 years old.
Hell yeah. Well, I mean, clearly, old socialists still laying the pipe. 71.
I hope you censor that.
That one I'm thinking about. I don't know.
I think they met when he was in prison, no less. It was like a prison marriage.
Oh, she comes
She was
and
his
gives me the
caseworker.
best conjugal visits I've ever had.
Fucking creepy, man.
I don't know why you're so stuck on this.
He's a creepy guy. I don't like Lula.
But Bolsonaro's a fucking creepy guy too. It's
I know.
two ghouls. So what are you gonna say?
Why are you dichotomizing their election as if there are only two people running?
Well,
You sound a lot like Joe Biden.
Why don't you give us? Why
If you don't vote for me, it's Donald Trump. There's only two choices.
Why don't you give us who are the third party candidates then?
I am not a Brazilian person,
well, then
I don't have to research
You're bringing
that.
it up. You're bringing it up, and now you're obfuscating. So
I'm not obfuscating anything.
I won
Look
this
it
argument.
Up.
I won.
You want me to look it up?
Ari, it's not my job to educate myself. It's your job to educate me.
I'll Google it right now, just to prove you wrong. Oh, here, Jacobin. Lula can win this year's presidential election.
Yeah,
Right. That's all we need is a third-term 76-year-old ex-convict who tells people that he's not going to give them the policies that he's going to put in place until after he wins the election.
Were we talking about Joe Biden?
I'm talking about Lula Azov.
Lula.
Did you know that 16 is the voting age in Brazil? Since the life expectancy is only 22. That's a favela joke, guys.
That's fucked.
I'm sorry. That was dark, but
Dark and dirty.
did you know Portuguese living in Brazil more than 3 years can vote? Their elections are really open.
That's interesting. What if I just say I'm Portuguese?
Yeah, good luck with that. So let's see. Bolsonaro, De Silva. I don't even know how to say this. Wow. I'm going to say it's wow. Doria from the Social Democracy Party. Since you don't only need socialism, you need a little democracy there too.
I like socialism and I do like democracy.
The Democratic Labor Party, Ciro Gomez, who literally has like the socialist like fist and flower thing in their symbol.
I do like
Simone Tebet from the
like
Brazilian
that.
Democratic Movement, since there's nothing wrong with democracy.
democracy's good.
Avante, I don't know what that means.
Well, next podcast I expect you to do a deep dive on each of these people.
Fuck you.
I want full biographies.
I will do no such thing.
I want policy details. And I want to know which one
Based
you
on their
are going to
faces?
support and send money to.
Probably.
Based on their faces. What,
Well, their face is probably
what
the most
a
important thing
fucking
in any election.
superficial piece of shit.
I was going to say the Social Democracy Party because I think that they're probably the most like pro-democratic party, since they actually have the word democracy in their name.
Maybe sometimes those things are
Like the Democratic People's Republic of
like
America.
like the like the Chinese Communist Party, which is famously very communist.
Oh.
Speaking of elections,
Well, anyway, you didn't let me finish. I was going to vote for Ciro Gomez.
all right, Ciro Gomez,
Because he was
Ari's
born
on
in-
record.
Pindamonhangaba. That name sounds cool.
I don't appreciate you making fun of the beautiful Portuguese language.
I'm going to look up both these guys. Oao Doria
I
looks a
tricked him
little
into
fake.
doing
He's
it.
got one of those politicians'
Tricked him
faces.
into educating me. Now he's doing it for me.
I heard that.
What did I say?
You said that Oao Doria.
Is a handsome man, or is it a woman? I actually don't know.
Continue.
A handsome individual. Let's say. Let's not gender them. I don't know their pronouns.
Oh, he's an aristocrat. He says that his family's been in Brazil for like 400 years, from the Doria family of Genoa.
I don't like that. I assume that most of them are probably aristocrats, though, with how like
Although his family was a leftist.
hierarchical and divided their country is.
He's a pure leftist.
Speaking of elections, I don't think we talked about Bong Bong.
Did we not?
We talked about it, but I don't know that we did it on pod.
I feel like we talk about marijuana legalization like periodically, and we never really get anywhere with this topic. Just kidding. Yeah, that's pretty dark, but I mean, with the way the world's going,
It's taking an authoritarian shift.
let's just be, just for anyone who doesn't know, Bong Bong, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the son of former dictator of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos Sr. Yeah, dictator. Won the presidential election in the Philippines and will serve, I think they serve 6-year terms? Single 6-year terms. And by the way, he lost. He ran for VP last time and lost. And this time he won because people are just itching for a dictator. And his VP will be none other than the daughter of the current president, Duterte.
Oh,
So Sarah Duterte is the VP here, which means
Bong
she's
Bong
probably
and
going to try to
Sarah.
be president.
probably.
Well, they run from different parties. Like they're not. They
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
run
It's
the same
it's
election.
independent. Yeah, they're independent elections.
So just to add, Bong Bong Marcos is currently under U.S. sanctions and is now as president. I don't know, but was I think owed the United States government like $350 billion. Was it million or billion?
I assume that's million, but I
think
don't
it's
know.
million. Anyway, and he refused to pay, of course, and they said they told him he was never allowed to return to the United States because, by the way, he fled there after his father was deposed in a coup. He took all that money that his father had stolen from the people of the Philippines to America.
Yeah, thanks America for whitewashing that dictatorship, by the way.
Yeah, they should have. I mean, they should have just not let him get on a plane. They should have just let the people lynch him on the spot, him and his mother.
I think they should have had a trial, but yeah, I saw they like right after he won, they were doing like interviews with him or just like filming him while they were
I will
celebrating.
never pay my debts.
There's just like stolen like Pablo Picassos and shit in their house.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Just
By the way,
wild.
he also owes, because of all the money his father stole, he owes, I think a similar amount, somewhere in the billions of Philippine pesos, to the Philippine government in back taxes, which
He won't pay.
yeah, he's definitely not going to pay now.
Yeah. Speaking of hitting delete on a fucking government spreadsheet.
Yeah, as the president, I feel like he's just similar to Donald Trump. He'll be like, I am the government. I don't know the government shit.
He's got dictatorship in his blood. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all. But we'll see. Hopefully,
Did you know that
Hopefully not.
cockfighting is still legal in the Philippines?
dude, cockfighting was legal in America until like the 80s.
Is that a fact?
Yeah, in Oklahoma, I know for a fact. But a number of states, yeah, it was just
Wait, why do you know that as a fact?
I was
Family members.
No, my family members didn't do that. I don't have a bunch of family that still lives in Oklahoma today. No. No, I was listening to a podcast.
Sure.
That's my excuse. I mean explanation. But yeah. So, yeah, it's bad. Animal fighting.
is terrible.
Animal fighting is disgusting.
I watched a documentary about was it about the Philippines?
Oh,
No,
you
it
mean
was-
you watched a live stream where you could bet?
I think it was about East Timor.
Okay.
Anyway, and they had cockfighting, and they didn't show any of the details, so I looked it up basically to see if cockfighting basically led to the death of the animals. And
Yeah.
well, because I didn't know. I thought they kind of just peck each other. It's hard to picture.
No, they strap fucking razor blades to their legs.
Exactly. It's not even
violent.
it's like it's not a razor blade. It's like a special knife designed for murdering other cocks. It's like a razor blade sharpened sword.
Yeah, we got to end cock on cock violence. It's brutal, man. I don't know. I don't understand how people do like that and dogfighting and stuff. Like I can't even watch animals like just get hurt. I don't like watching people get hurt either, obviously, but like I don't know. I don't know how you derive like pleasure from that. But some people are pretty sick, man.
I mean, I think it's the same as fishing, honestly. It's like watching something slowly suffocate in a bucket next to you. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people, they're not doing it because they need the food. They're doing it because it's just a sport, and they've just desensitized themselves to the violence of it. It's just like a thing that
True, yeah.
they watch other people do, and they just like, they just get used to it.
I think a lot of that is, with fish, I think people make up these little lies they tell themselves, like fish can't feel pain and stuff like that, to like,
Some of them do, some don't care.
that's true, some
'Cause
don't
you
care.
See, I mean, for fuck's sake, you see the fish flailing around. The last time I went with a group of people fishing,
yeah.
I think that they got an eel, and that eel was squirming for like an hour, like flailing around.
Yeah.
And what they do, I mean, it's not like sympathy. They take it out and they take off their shoe and bash it on the head.
Bash its head in, yeah.
Yeah, and it still doesn't work, because
Yeah, because you're hitting it with a shoe. Like, yeah. I mean, yeah. I when I was younger, we used to fish. Usually we did catch and release, which is not to say that that's like ripping, like forcing a piercing through a fish's mouth is not like a very humane thing. But yeah, we generally didn't eat them because they were like dirty, bottom-feeding river channel
it's
cats.
a little bit like manhunting.
People do. I mean, I think just like if you're gonna eat any meat, you have to catch it with your hands. Like you have to go noodling if you want to catch fish, and if you wanna hunt deer, you have to jump onto its back and slit its throat, like out of a tree. Like you don't get you have to go mano a mano with the deer. You can't just be using all these high-powered rifles where you can kill it from 300 miles
What
away
about a dagger?
while it licks a salt lick, not 300 miles, 300 feet. What about a dagger? I think you should probably just have to use your bare hands, but yeah.
That would be sick. That would make hunting a lot more difficult.
The most dangerous game.
Yeah, man, the number of people that would die of deer kicks to the face, as opposed to the number now that die of, what is it, foot and mouth disease? What are they carrying now?
I forget.
Chronic wasting disease.
Like wasting, yeah.
A new prion syndrome that the hunting folk are reintroducing to the human species. Thank you very much.
They do this
Thanks, Joe
those,
Rogan.
Those trophy hunters that just like
You guys want some elk?
breed crazy stuff.
You know,
No,
if you cook it for 10 hours, it still doesn't kill the CWD.
actually, Joe Bogan prefers a little kangaroo jerky.
I was watching a documentary about that recently too.
About kangaroo jerky?
About the kangaroo industry. That basically, I forget what the conclusion was, but basically that like people who make money off it want it to continue, and people who don't
Of course.
want money from it.
Everyone wants money.
Yeah.
I think that's It's what makes the world go round.
The only ones who don't are the ones that can't stand to make any money because they're involved in the conservation racket. That's a joke. I'm very pro-conservation.
I am as well, but there is a lot of, like, looking into the WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, there is a lot of racketeering, and they do,
Any
like, sponsored
organization
hunts and
that
stuff.
has the word global, united, or world in it is a racket.
The globalists.
Yeah.
Not because I'm not anti-globalization. Any organization that grows beyond a certain point, I think the hierarchical structure becomes so efficient that most of the money they spend is just simply on middle managers.
Yeah, bureaucracy. That's
Yeah.
right. I tend to agree with that. I think there is something to have, like, just like we were talking about, like, the UN and stuff. I think there's something to be said about having those spaces to, like, have meetings. But yeah, I don't think we need to pour a ton of money into them. I think we need to be focusing on grassroots
we
local
have
organizing.
These wonderful organizations like Zoom now. Why don't we just have a global Zoom call and end the UN?
That's
all the
fine with
leaders
me.
can just. I'm just joking.
Obviously
Nobody
not.
should ever use Zoom.
Obviously not Zoom.
Let's all create a nice group
Microsoft
signal
Teams.
Oh yes, yeah. Let's use an encrypted app. I agree with that.
call. Have a signal call where all the world leaders can like get on and shout at each other, and that's it.
I also
And
think
if you want to donate money, just donate it to Bill Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Going to Bill Gates at Cash App.
Buy as many Best Buy gift cards when you're near CVS and send them straight to Bill Gates.
My Visa one-time use debit card straight to Bill Gates. $15. 45 Brazilian pesos.
I prefer Indian rupees or
I do.
Indonesian rupiah.
I tend to agree with that.
Those are as close as you'll ever get to cryptocurrency, folks. In terms of untraceable.
Speaking of protests,
Speaking of cryptocurrency crashes,
oh my goodness, yeah, it's flailing right now, which is you love to see it, folks.
I love to see every day they're like, Novogratz no longer a billionaire. I'm like, yes. I love seeing people fail.
I
Their
like
ideas
I
are
like
stupid.
I like to see average people succeed, but yeah, I love to see like
Billionaires
elites trying to like create their own like their own economy and like do pump and dumps and shit. I love to see them lose money. I agree with that. Make the rich poor again. Do you hear about the protests in Turkey?
No.
There was an opposition politician named Kanan,
Oh, really?
or maybe it's Kanan,
Canan Abel.
Canan, Kanan, maybe Kafansoglu, Kaftancioglu. My pronunciation is not good.
Well, you should have tried harder. Jesus.
I should have. I should have looked up how to pronounce this, but I saw it right before I came on. But this politician was locked up, sentenced to just under 5 years in jail.
Don't tell me he was one of those Gulenists.
I think it was a woman.
Don't tell me she was one of those Gulenists. Fatula Gulen. No comment. Do your own research.
Who was sentenced to just under 5 years in jail, heads Republican People's Party, Istanbul branch, and is one of the strongest voices in it. In 2019, she played a significant role in municipal elections in the city and saw the CHP take over the majority, which had been held by President Tayyip Erdogan's AK party, which is a sick name for a
his
party.
first name.
Huh?
Recep
Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Tayyip.
But it says under Turkish law, sentences of under 5 years are suspended. And two legal experts told Reuters that she would not be jailed. So apparently she's not jailed. Insulting the president and the state.
Sounds a lot like Taiwan.
Honestly, a little bit. And that's something they should seriously fix. Because it's disgusting. You should be able to say whatever you want about it. I mean, obviously, aside from like libel and slander and direct threats of violence, you should be able to say whatever you want. I think people should be civil and nice, but like, if you think someone's a crook, you should call them out on it.
Well, I'm not a crook.
If you think someone's destroying the country,
Always questioning me and my wild corruption claims against the Taiwanese
I
government.
think you. That's the thing is, I think you have to have proof.
But you just said if you think someone's a crook, you should call them out.
Yeah, with evidence. I don't think you should just.
But sometimes you just can't get the evidence.
So you just make it up.
So you can just, so you just talk shit.
I mean, again, I think it should be protected.
I'm not posting on a news site. I'm just talking to you.
You're talking to hundreds of thousands of people on this beautiful fucking
No,
podcast.
I mean in our personal conversations.
Yeah, but for me,
like, all right, I'm gonna need to see some evidence.
I
want to
see evidence. I want to know, like,
yeah,
if that's how you feel.
Get evidence of that?
If that's how you feel, I mean, I sympathize with you, and I tend to feel the same way.
It's not about feeling. It's about kind of like a matter of deduction that there's only one reasonable explanation for why a leader would do what they do. That there are some conflict of interest, clearly.
I mean, again, I need evidence. I think because I think it could be about I think it could be about power as well. I don't think it necessarily has to be about money.
When you give up your mayorship, when you give up the potential to lead the greatest city, Kaohsiung.
This is the greatest city.
Is that where they chose their lowest level politician?
People like Chen Qimai. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you.
They liked him so much they didn't vote for him last time.
They fucking voted for him the last time.
My point being that
and they're going to
like,
vote for him again.
We think Kaohsiung is so shit. They're
Taipei elites, man. What the fuck? You know this. They don't. Of course, they don't give a shit about Kaohsiung.
But what's interesting is that the people of Kaohsiung were like, you know what? We don't care that they stuck a middle finger in our face. We don't care that they look down on us, that they talk shit, that they don't give us money. We're still going to vote for this.
People will eat a lot of shit before they fucking stand up and scream about something. Taiwanese people, I think, and there are a lot of protests here, so this is a little bit unfair, but I think people need to start protesting again. I would like to see like a second sunflower movement or like
oh hell yeah, brother,
wild lily movement or something.
Let's start.
Go back to Taiwan's democratic roots of
Wait
like
until I graduate so that I don't get deported before my degree is finished, please.
All right, that's fine. I also just want to see protests because I want to go talk to people. I mean, I'm planning.
That's a weird thing to say.
Well, I want to hear what people.
Isolated. It's COVID right now.
I feel really lonely. No, I want to hear what people think. I want to see what like average everyday because like
I mean, we could do that any day of the week, bud. We don't need to go to a protest. Just stand outside a train station.
Yeah, but though I mean, I want people who are like a little bit more politically active because like I talked to some of the friends from our neighbors and
they're not politically active.
No, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying is that like they're like they have opinions on like certain issues, but like for the most part they just don't care. Like they were watching the news last night.
They repeat a lot of fake news. Too.
That's true. That is true. But I was talking to them about like news and stuff last night.
Biden created COVID.
Did you hear that Ari hates?
Oh yeah, that's another false rumor. Obviously false. I hope you're gonna cut that out because even that sounds bad. The accusation even sounds bad.
I know that's the thing. That's yeah. I was thinking about that for some reason the other day. It's just like. That's one reason why I like to have evidence because like you can just make up shit and then it's like the classic question of like, Ari, how often do you beat your wife? It's like, what I mean, obviously the response is I don't beat my wife, but it's already been alleged. Yeah. So it's like then you're fighting a losing battle already.
Yeah, but for public, I think it's different for public figures. I'm not a public figure, not yet.
I mean, I agree with that to some degree, but I also just think I think it's important. For like movements and for like ideological pushes to be very evidence based, because then I think then you can be above or at least
I agree with you
above reproach.
But pointing out that there appears to be a conflict of interest because there's no other reasonable explanation is still valid.
I tend to agree with that.
You're right. Maybe the claims that I make sometimes in a fit of personal conversation are
and I mean
a little off the wall.
Everyone does that. I mean, I say insane shit that I would never say on the podcast when I'm just talking to you.
Oh yeah.
And but I do think that we also have to be like clear in our language. Like this is
still going?
This is what I feel. This is how.
Yeah,
it is. This is what I feel. This is like a feeling that I have, rather than like this is something I know as a fact.
You know how we get riled up.
I know. I love to get riled up, boy.
The best ticket is have these conversations before we've eaten. I find myself very clear-minded.
I've already eaten.
Relatively clear-minded. A little weak.
I had a croissant today.
Ooh.
With some mashed potatoes on it. And then I went to the traditional market and bought so much food. I'm going to cook a fat pot of like
I really try
mashed
to avoid
potato
on the
soup.
Weekends, man.
It wasn't bad. I went like during like closing time basically.
But it's also bad because last time I went to my favorite guy in the corner there, the cheapo one.
Oh yeah.
I got everything I needed from him because he hadn't sold out of anything. It was so cheap. I bought like 9 carrots, 10 cucumbers, like 3 pounds of tomatoes, 4 radishes, 3 bunches of green onions, 3 regular onions for like 200 NT, which is $7 US.
That is good.
Yeah, that guy is so cheap.
I just bought a bunch of just tomatoes. I'm gonna make a tomato-based mashed potato soup.
I made chili last week. It was good. It was really good.
Yeah, I haven't had chili in a while.
I'll make some chili soon. I'll give you a tiny bowl because I don't like sharing chili.
It's okay. I generally keep like a fat Tupperware in the fridge of just like
Old chili.
basically soup base.
Months old chili.
Yeah, I like it. I like to get a little green fungus on the top. Gives it that extra flavor. That's how you know
Olivia's
it's good.
like, I thought the main ingredient of chili was chili peppers. I'm like, no, I guess it's tomatoes, onions, and beans, I'd say.
Depends on where you're eating chili, though, because if you go down to the free state in America, Texas, they don't put no beans in their chili.
Caterpillars.
It's actually
Dog face.
Greg Abbott's shin bones.
That's a bad joke.
Fuck that guy, man.
His Achilles tendon. He'll never need it.
We're gonna move on from that.
After that tree.
Oh, I can't make comments about how I feel about that. What else you got, bud? We may have to swap bats in a second.
Oh, Sri Lanka. I don't know really what happened there. There was another.
I wrote an article about the PM resigning, but that's been like a week or more now.
Yeah. Well, we haven't talked about it.
Please
look up where Sri Lanka is, folks.
Google Maps that stuff. No, read the articles. We've been.
If you don't know anything about the Tamil separatist movement, you haven't been reading enough Jordan's history.
If you don't know enough about the Tamil Tigers, then you clearly are not a history buff.
I think. Oh, I was also gonna say Eddie has been on his fucking king shit lately. He's been putting out so much content.
Yeah.
Everyone go read Eddie's articles.
I don't agree with everything he writes, but I edit everything he writes.
That's the point, though, is that we don't just have a monolithic thought on there. I mean,
that's true.
We disagree enough on this podcast, and we're nearly the fucking same person. So, like,
we disagree on like the intricacies.
Intricacies. Yes.
Yeah.
We disagree on minute details.
I just want him to say that he agrees with me. Sometimes we just like fight over the meaning of a word.
I think both of us have that thing where we want to convince people and for them to agree with us. Because I feel the same way about a lot of things.
Lawyers.
I ain't got time for that.
Fuck you, Judge.
I object because the judge is a cook.
I'll spend the next 2 weeks in the tank because of contempt of court. I don't fucking care.
Throw the cuffs on me.
So you're a lot more eloquent right now. This is because I haven't eaten, and it's now almost 5 o'clock.
It's getting pretty late.
Yeah,
this weather keeps going back and forth too. It was it was cloudy when we started, then it got super sunny and blue, and now it's cloudy again.
Blue skies.
But at least no rain. I keep hearing all these people in the north just complaining about how cold and rainy it is, and I'm like,
right now?
It rained, yeah, like,
jeez.
This was from a couple days ago, but
it's hard to picture.
It rained here, but it hasn't been cold here for maybe since I moved here, like a year ago.
Well, it was cold here the other day. I think you're a little bit more thick-skinned than most people, but
that's Ari calling me fat. Thank you, Ari.
No, that's me calling you an AC addict.
Fat phobia. I do like the AC.
Me and Olivia, I'm like shivering in the shower, and I can hear the AC running next door.
It's because you're a thin boy.
I'm thin, but I grew up in a lot hotter place than you did. I think I'm just like, I hate the cold. I can't stand it. It like, my body is just attuned to like hot weather.
I more and more don't like the cold either, but which is one of the myriad reasons that I moved here. But I do like when I'm like settling down for the night. I do like to have a little bit chilly. But I have been, when I'm doing research, mostly I just sit in the living room now.
Yeah, I've been seeing you do that.
Hit that fan.
I'm like, why is someone sitting in that house? Because I'm not used to seeing you there.
It's a good spot. That chair is a little leathery, and thus it gets quite sticky, but it's okay.
Oh yeah, I remember wearing no shirt in that chair many times, and my back just
ripping off. And it sounds like someone opening a fucking Velcro wallet.
I know you're a big fan of Velcro.
Oh, that's one of my least favorite inventions of all time. I know it's very useful for people, but it's...
I know your next birthday present.
I hate the sound.
I'm just going to get you a suit made of Velcro.
I'll burn it. I'll make an effigy of Joe Biden and burn that shit.
Velcro shoes.
Oh man, I
Velcro
remember
T-shirts.
I remember-
everything you touch just sticks to it.
I
You gotta
used-
peel it off.
I used to have a Velcro wallet when I was in elementary school, and I cut the Velcro off of it. I'm serious. I was like,
That's how my money got stolen.
I was like, I cannot stand this.
Had
Yeah.
I been able to hear people opening my wallet, I would have known.
Yeah, and then I got mugged in my town of 150.
Pickpocketed.
Ain't nobody can pickpocket me. My peripherals are too good for that.
How about like Velcro?
Velvet's cool. I would like to get a crushed velvet tracksuit and a gold chain, so I can just sit out here and look like I'm
Italian.
Russian mafia, or Italian.
I was gonna make a Fauci joke, but I feel like it's the wrong time for that. Not while COVID's on the rebound.
Yeah, he might ramp it up.
I mean, we're having another wave now. I've been seeing the American press even changing tone. They're like, why did we keep saying that Omicron wasn't dangerous? Like, with the number of cases that we've had, like the peak Omicron deaths are worse than Delta.
Yeah, they're
Which is weird for the American press to be saying that.
Well, they're all namely because they're one of the most complicit entities in this whole fucking thing.
Yes.
It's shameful, man. It's shameful, but I'm not surprised at all.
I'll
But
show
yeah,
you this.
the
NBC.
wave is going back up.
Speaking of beagle killers, there was an article about a beagle not a dealer, what do you call it, a breeder.
Yeah.
And they were saying it was like really bad. I don't know why anyone cares about this, because like people tolerate like the animal cruelty
Factory
industry.
farming?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
every day, and they're like,
Yeah.
beagles were killing each other. It's like, well, you don't think that happens at every single breeder, where they basically like stick thousands of animals in a cage and feed them slop? Like, what do you think is taking place in those places? But they were saying hundreds of beagles died.
Dang.
Like before the feds shut them down. And what Peter was saying is like they should have shut them down a long time ago. Like they knew like the conditions were horrible, and they're just like, tiny fine,
Yeah.
keep going.
Slap on the wrist.
You'd better stop, kind.
That's one thing. I just wrote an article about.
I just had a beagle in my background.
I wrote about an amendment
Ugh.
to the Taiwan's
Constitution.
one of their espionage acts, basically. But what I
Does that have to do with beagles or
no, what I thought was smart, and this is how I was thinking about fines, and what they do with the fines is, because it's about theft of intellectual property, is they do the fine for people stealing confidential business information and taking it from Taiwan to places like China, is they charge you 2 to 10 times the profit that you make in the fine. So instead of being like, this is the baseline fine, it's like, whatever you make, you're paying at least double that.
Why? How is that fair? That should be like 150 times. Like,
Well, I
they
agree.
should be crushing people.
I
who
agree, but
commit espionage.
well, there's also
like,
like
if you stole $1,000, you'll pay $2,000.
Well,
that will teach you.
It's obviously like million. It would be millions, if not billions, of dollars with some of these technologies. But my point is that when we have these like baseline fines, of course, like you can look at it over and over again with like the 2008 collapse and things like that. They know that they can commit fraud as a business model and then get away with it and pay like a fraction of a percent in a fine. So of course they're going to keep doing it. But that's my point, is that this is what it needs to be. And I agree with you. It should be much more. It should be 50, 100 times.
100 minimum.
It should bankrupt them, honestly. Like
Yes.
you should be bankrupted, and you should, if not jailed. But a lot of these
Both.
also have jail time combined with it. Like that
100 times jail sentence too.
hard labor.
If you were like committing espionage for like a 1 year period, then you get 100 years in prison. I'm just kidding. I think that stealing property is one thing. If you're selling like national security secrets, then yeah, you probably need to spend the rest of your life in prison.
At least a very, very long time until you're reformed, which again should be the purpose of a justice system.
punishment.
Yeah, just make us feel good.
I wanted to end on the beagle thing, but my mind is swimming right now in low blood sugar. So let me ask you if I can remember the last thing that I wanted, which was I wrote an editorial, an opinion piece on Taiwan's housing crisis, saying that they should tax multiple homes.
Yeah,
Did you read it?
I didn't. I've been researching for this historical podcast that you shit all over on this podcast.
It's me hyperventilating.
I got your paper bag. Hold on. No, I didn't, but I plan to.
Sure.
But I agree with that. Why? What's your question? What's your question
No,
about
that's it. I gotta go eat.
it? You want me to read? You want me to read it out loud on the pod, right now?
Yeah, I'd like to hear your pronunciation so I can critique you.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do that. Not in front of other people.
You just berate me
I'll just wait until the pod is over and start screaming.
Your pronunciation is shit. Yeah. Anyway, go read all these articles. They were just content on top of content, folks. Stacks and stacks.
I've started realizing that if I have any really controversial topics that I don't want attached to my name forever, I'm just going to start writing them in Mandarin.
Write them in Mandarin as the staff writer. We would never do that. We wouldn't do that. But yeah, there's lots of content out there. If you would like to help a couple starving artists, starving journalists, starving PhD students,
donate your money to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yeah, I think maybe
because they help lots of starving
I'm
artists.
thinking about just like getting like a PayPal or like a Cash App or something that people can just donate directly one time to us. But if you want like cool stuff, you can go Patreon, patreon.com/FreeChinaPost. You can visiting the website helps us as well. Yeah, so do all that. Follow us on social medias. Signal Boost. If you don't have any money to give us, signal boosting also helps. But we appreciate anything and everything y'all do for us. We love you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Good night.
FCP.